Welcome to the Zion in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Leland Coford.
And I am Bonnie Coford with UpStep Development.
We have a great guest today, don't we?
We really do.
Yes, our guest is the founder and owner of LatterdayVillage.com. So for 24 years, they've been providing resources for LDS teachers and families. Her partners call her a creative genius.
And she is. She's wonderful.
Yep. She's gifted and passionate and in teaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. We'd like to welcome Deborah Woods.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And we're so glad that you were in town to be able to do this.
Oh, yeah.
You've
Thanks for
traveled
making
a
the trip.
ways to get here.
Yeah, I live in Mesa, Arizona. So it wasn't planned, but I happened to suddenly be able to be available in person today. So this is really fun.
This is awesome that you're here. We appreciate your time. So tell us a little bit about your company and how it got started.
Well, I have to kind of go back a ways. Okay. So I joined the church when I was 16.
The Church of Jesus Christ of
Church of
Latter-day
Jesus
Saints.
Christ of Latter-day Saints
good.
in Ohio. I knew almost next to nothing about it when I joined. And I came out to Utah and went to BYU, and it was called Rick's back in those days.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, when I was 20, I was asked to be the primary chorister, and this was when primary was on Wednesdays or
Right.
midweek
During the week.
yeah,
During the week.
after
Okay.
school. And I knew nothing about primary. And very gently, when they realized how ignorant I was, they said, "These are the books you're allowed to choose songs from." And,
Okay.
oh, maybe, you could use posters if you'd like. I was like, "Oh, okay." But I soon found out that I had a gift and love for teaching children the gospel. And I never would have known if I hadn't filled a calling, hadn't accepted a request to serve. And wow, it's made all the difference in the world to me. And eventually, it seemed like wherever I went, I'd be called to be the chorister for primary.
Oh, nice.
And eventually, I ended up being asked to be the stake music leader.
Okay.
And so now I was teaching teachers.
And a stake is actually an organization that has a whole bunch of
Congregations.
different congregations
Right.
in it. That
Okay.
So we
comprises a
probably
stake.
had about 8 different congregations, and as a leader throughout the stake, we would have meetings, and the teachers and leaders would come from the congregations, and we would kind of try to inspire them and guide them and stuff. And what I found was when people would come in, sometimes they seemed so discouraged and really hopeless, and I'm like, it was written all over their faces. But by the time they left my little class, there was hope. And then the next time they came back, it was a quarterly meeting. In 3 months, they'd come back filled with excitement about their calling. And I'm like, this is so cool.
Mm.
This is so cool to inspire teachers. And what I ended up doing was just they became my primary. I demonstrated what I would do if I was in front of a group of children. And I'd say, "Boys and girls, do you know what's in this box?" And suddenly, they were all children. And they would, "No, what's in the box? Do you want to see what's in the box?" And the inner child of each of these adults came up and out. And they were on the edge of their seats, and it was amazing to me. They responded exactly the way the children do. And my takeaway was we were all children once. And even if we were unhappy, there's a child that wants to have that wonderful, wonderful fantasy kind of childhood, where you're filled with wonder and awe. And
So how did that turn into this wonderful company that you got?
Well, it was such a rush for me. And so I always thought, I wish that I I could do this for more people than just my stake, And I would see books in bookstores and I'd say, oh man, I have better ideas than these books. And one day I actually, I had this program in my primary as the primary president where we had this little system where we taught children how to use their scriptures. It was so effective. It was something they did in sacrament meeting. Like they'd get this little paper and they'd had to figure out some quiz about the scriptures. And soon their brothers and sisters were leaning in and wanting to do it. And soon their parents were leaning in and wanting to do it. And one time the bishop's wife came up to me afterwards and said, "This is unsolvable." And this little girl runs up and says, Sister Woods, I figured it out." I said, okay. The parents were getting into it. And by the end of 1 year, we had a whole primary full of scripture whizzes who knew how to look up the topical guide, the Bible dictionary, and the footnotes, and the chapter headings, and the maps. And it was amazing. And I saw the theme for the upcoming year, the outline for the upcoming year was, I know the scriptures are true. And it said, you need to find ways to teach them how to use their topical guide and their footnotes and their chapter headings. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I just had to sit down right there and the Spirit whooshed over me. And I said, I have to write a book for everyone. And it has to be in bookstores in time for the start of the year. And I found a publisher who was willing to do that. And it did. It happened. And I started writing books. And he said I could sell them myself. And so I set up a website to sell my books, but they were selling at Deseret Book, BYU Bookstore, all the little Seagull Book, all the little bookstores all over. Wherever there's a temple, there's a bookstore. People's garages, my books were in there. Mm-hmm. But there was such a short time line between when the theme came out and when the book had to be in print that I said, I can't do this anymore. I want to do it online. I want the whole thing to be online. Then I can have color, and I only have to produce 1 month at a time. And I spread it out over a year. And so I figured out how to do it, and I made a commitment. And I said, what if one person subscribes? I've committed to a whole year of material for them. Well, I had 200 subscribers the first year, and 400 subscribers the second year, and so it was taking off. And I eventually my stuff was for primary, mm-hmm. and if I did it for a calling, if anything that I had ever done for primary, I thought this was my gift to God, and I'm putting it on my site for free. This subscription stuff was new stuff that was specifically for my subscribers. So I had a lot of free stuff, and people loved it. Mm-hmm. I was the top in search engines. I was number one back in, like I say, the wild west.
Yes, you said that before.
The late 90s, was the wild west. Anyway,
right. You specialize in visual arts. How does the visual help in training not only children but adults?
Well, like I say, there's a child inside of each one of us.
All right.
So it still may be the child that is responding to the visuals.
Okay.
But I think that when you use your senses, the more senses you use, the more effective and powerful, and it gets in your brain. So if you use music and you use visuals, and if you use food, honestly,
right?
Because I remember every wedding, what was served at every big family wedding that I ever went to. I associate the kind of cake they had with, a memory. Anyway, so the more senses you use, the better.
Yeah.
And so there's fun things that you can do with visuals that the kids get really excited about. Mm-hmm. So for music, for example, you have to repeat songs over and over again.
Absolutely. Children need repeating, that a child or a individual. Most individuals need to hear something 3 to 5 times
Oh, wow.
before they understand something. Most individuals
Yep.
need that, whether they're a child or an adult. But when we come back from our little break here, we're going to get into how developing your business has strengthened the family.
You bet.
If you are frustrated with increased complaining, blaming, or silent treatments, if you have challenges with jealousy or feeling not good enough, if you are afraid of being controlled, ignored, or even cheated on, reach out to us. We help you put back the bounce in his step and the sparkle in her eyes. We are UpStep Development, marriage and life coaches. We sponsored this program for you. Reach us at upstepdevelopment.com.
Welcome back to our podcast today, and Deborah Woods is our guest, and we're so glad to have you. And we've been talking about how you started your business, and your business, Latter Day Village, you can find at latterdayvillage.com, right? So I wanted to put that out there for people to know where to find you. But we've been talking how you were a comfort to the church and how you got your business started, and because of your teaching children at an early stage when you were involved in getting involved with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I wanted to talk about how your business affects families in strengthening them. Can you tell us how all of the things that you do in your business strengthens the family?
Well, we are a lay church, meaning nobody gets paid for what they do. And they also don't go to school and get a degree in learning how to do what they do as volunteers and as a calling. I mean, they feel like we feel like it's from God that we were asked to do this. Our leaders are inspired to ask us to do a certain thing. And when teachers feel supported, then they are happy to serve. When they don't feel supported, it's very common to feel overwhelmed and inadequate. And so watching teachers be confident in their service, well, then this spreads to their class, and the love of the gospel, their love of the gospel and their effective teaching of the gospel affects their class, but it also affects them and their faith. I think especially women get a lot out of their calling is a big part of their life. And when they are happy about their service, then it lifts their faith in themselves and their activity in the church. And so that also comes back to home.
It comes back to the family, doesn't it?
It does come back to the family.
Because the strength of the parents in themselves as an individual affects everything that happens in the home, especially the mother. The mother is home
Right.
almost 24/7, if
Right.
not after work. Nowadays a lot of people are working. So having the mother be strong in herself is just vital.
Right. It absolutely is.
Yes. And the kids nowadays need the mom to focus in on them as children and to focus in on creating the home atmosphere where they feel safe, where they feel that they can come home and feel that they're safe.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so your business actually creates a place where you can have visuals for the family to be able to bring in the family close together as a group and strengthen the bonds by learning together, learning principles of the gospel together.
Well, in the past, the family was basically given. We were charged with having scripture study and family home evening weekly, and we were provided with a big thick book of all kinds of stuff to do.
Resources.
And
Right.
but the thing about that was it was really up to the family to decide what they were going to teach on any given week. And the church didn't impose any kind of curriculum
Right.
for families.
Right.
But that really changed with Come Follow Me.
It sure did.
It really became, as President Nelson said, a family-centered, church-supported program. And I've just been amazed to see how young families, well, I was saying this to my son, this is what we're going to talk about tomorrow in this podcast, and he said he wanted to chime in.
Okay.
Good for him.
He has 2 children. Christopher is 9 and Ellie is 4. And they have been doing a bedtime routine since he was an infant. Christopher was an infant. And if I was there, I got to be part of the bedtime routine. And it truly seemed like it almost, he's not getting anything out of this. But over 9 years, Bill said, just tell him to be persistent and don't expect big results right away.
Little baby steps.
Yeah.
One line, one precept upon precept builds and strengthens, right?
Right.
And it's consistent. You have to do it in consistency.
Yes.
Yes.
So now they're actually taking the Come Follow Me, and there'll be some bullet points of things that you might cover, and they just do one of those a day or maybe watch a video or something. And I'm thinking the whole church is focused on this week's curriculum, this scripture block, and so now for the first time, I feel like I can directly support what the family's covering at home, and because I didn't want to do that was their job to do that, but now that we're all on the same page, all over the world.
Yes. And don't you find that with strengthening the family, I'm going to go back to this, strengthening the family, that when the children go outside of the home after being a unit as a family, that they can combat some of the things that are challenging them, things at school that are challenging them, things that are in the neighborhood that are challenging them.
The media and
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm finding that, and we've brought this up in past podcasts before, but we are finding that children are being taken away by these electronic devices, and they're not talking to the parents. They're not talking to each other. They're not strengthening that bond. Right. And because of that, the family is deteriorating.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Deb, you know as well as I do how important it is for the bonds of the family to be careful, to be strengthened, because once a divorce happens or anything of hardship, a death in the family or anything like that, it can destroy the family, right? And
absolutely.
It's passed down to the children. The children are the ones that are hurt the most, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's hard for families and children to stay together unless they put the time in that's needed to strengthen the family.
So our listeners may not know this, but Deborah and you are friends.
We are friends.
Tell us what happened.
Well, I found a new place to live,
okay.
And there was this lady that had this red hair down a couple doors down. And this lady was so cute. She just came up and she just was so vivacious and so happy and just welcomed me to the neighborhood. And just a warm smile. You just had such a warm smile,
Well,
Deb.
I knew you were working on your house for a long time before you moved in, and I kept seeing, people coming in and out, and I saw you and I thought, we're going to be friends. I knew we were going to be friends.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
And it's been ever since.
Mm-hmm.
It's been ever since.
Very dear.
Even if you move out of state.
Yes. First I moved out of the neighborhood, and then I moved out of the state.
Yes. But, Deb, watching everything, unfold with you and your business. I mean, you keep bringing on new things. You keep bringing on new product. You keep bringing on the most up-to-date things on your website. And again, your partner said that you were so creative, and I have to chime in and say this is true. You are so vivacious and so excited about teaching the gospel
Right.
to everyone, especially children in the family.
Yeah, I just feel like I could have done. I mean, this market is very tiny in the big scheme of things, and if I'm good at figuring out fun, creative ways to teach, I mean, I might be way better off doing elementary ed kind of stuff. I have zero interest in that. I really feel called to teach the gospel. And teaching anything else. I mean, I'm an artist and I'm an actress, and I've taught art and drama to kids, but I don't get the same. It doesn't do for me the way teaching the gospel to kids does.
Well, it seems like you teach art and drama to the kids, but through the gospel
Yes,
of Jesus Christ.
yes.
So tell us how that has helped the youth.
Well,
you know what? I'm looking. It's time for a break, isn't it?
It is.
We're going to come back. We're going to talk about that when we come back
Okay,
from our
sounds good.
break. Okay.
Thank you.
Today's sponsor is Temple in Mind. Gazing upon the house of the Lord reminds us of the simple phrase, choose the right. This powerful reminder turns us back to temples time and time again, and gives us the strength to carry on through the best and worst of times. They love temples and what they represent, so they have a collection of timeless, unique items to help keep your home centered around what really matters. At Temple in Mind, they have something for everyone and every occasion. They hope you'll be as excited as they are to help light the world with items that truly keep temples in mind. Visit their store at the University Place Mall in Orem, Utah, or check out their website at templeinmind.com.
Welcome back to the Zion in Mind podcast. We're so happy to have Deborah Woods as our guest today, the founder and owner of LatterdayVillage.com. We're glad to have you here. So before the break, we asked a question about how drama and music helps children and families grow closer together.
Oh, absolutely. It's fun.
Yeah, okay.
And if it's modeled, I think children are naturally very expressive and they get shut down. So if it's a safe place for you to be expressive, and as a teacher for me, when I was expressive, the kids saw, hey, it's okay to do that. And so I just have to say this. There was I taught music, and when I first was there, this was in Florida, there was these little sunbeams. And years went by, and I moved away.
How old are sunbeams?
3 years old.
Okay.
And I moved away, and I came back for a wedding, and I was setting up the wedding. I did the flowers like I like to do flowers. I did Bonnie and Leland's wedding flowers,
Yes.
and I was decorating the room, and I had all these girls who were now 16. They were my old sunbeams. And being in a room out at the church with me, they just started singing primary songs.
Oh, cute. Brought back memories.
I mean,
I'm sure they
from being
flooded in.
From being 3 years old, they
Right.
see me and they think music. So,
Nice.
And some of those girls are professional musicians. I mean, unbelievable musicians now. It's just kind of, I can't really take credit, but I'm beaming with pride when I see them anyway. But then at home. And so if it's safe and okay to put on a little skit, and let's dramatize the story. So one of the things we include in our especially in our family lesson packs are scripture figures. If the lesson is about, like this year we're studying church history and Doctrine and Covenants, and so we'll put scripture figures of early church
Leaders, right, yeah.
the characters from the stories, and so then they can retell them, and having the visuals helps them stay on track and stuff, and so kids just respond. That's why
Well, they
there's
do, because it's such a fast-paced world nowadays that kids are entertained. Boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, and you have to keep their interest, right?
right, and it's
Yeah.
when they're actually involved instead of just watching.
Oh, I love that. Having the kids involved
Right.
with it and not just the
Yeah.
parents lecturing.
And it's just funny. They can have a wonderful. It's kind of a profound experience to have them telling the story. And so if they get to act it out, or tell it with puppets, or they kind of own it. And it doesn't matter that it's just little kids using their funny pronunciations and it's just darling. And I just watched my little granddaughter yesterday, just like retelling stuff she'd seen. She'll do it for what's on TV. Why not do it for what's in the gospel? And then it just comes to life, and they love it, and it helps them focus. So I'll create a game, and through the game, they're focused on the game, and they all get to participate. And like in a home where the spread is big, age spread.
Okay, yeah.
An older child can team up with a younger child that doesn't
To
read
help
yet.
out.
Yeah,
Right.
and still feel like they're participating. And it's wonderful relationship bonding too.
Well, and you said that you had a story that you would like to share
Oh, right.
about a family.
Well, I have a friend. I'm going to call her Jane. And she had 5 children, and there was a divorce in the family. And as a single mom, on her own, she was very persistent and consistent about scriptures and family home evening. And as the years went by, some of her children are still active in the church and some aren't. But because of COVID, it's okay for me to say that.
absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Because of COVID and everything shutting down, they started, as adults, they were all grown up and had children of their own. And they started getting together for family home evening, even all of them. And they all have these fond memories of this thing that they'd done all the years they were growing up with her. And actually, she says, thank heavens for COVID, because we wouldn't have bothered with it. And so even the ones who aren't, going to church anymore, and their children are getting to participate in, and they don't even resist. There's no resistance to being part of this big Zoom family.
Right, okay.
And what a cool thing. And they get assignments, and the kids get assignments like find a picture, bring a picture of something or other, and they're so creative and work that into their family home evening lesson, and they're following the Come Follow Me program.
Nice. So you mentioned COVID, and I've got a question for you. How did your faith help you get through because COVID probably didn't help your business too much.
No, it did not.
So how did your faith help you get through that?
Through everything, including the latest being COVID, which is what sent me away from Utah. I mean, I was in an earthquake. I was in the pandemic. There were some riots
Right on your street.
Right on my street.
Yeah.
My car got broken into. It was just horrible, and I felt compelled to leave. And yet I kept doing my business as it was sort of really impacted. And it took faith, but I never stopped believing that promise in my blessing. And it has always panned out. I've never been hungry. I've never been without a roof over my head. I've always had transportation and everything I needed. And every time I think maybe I should do something different, the still small voice is that, still and small. Like, no, you need to keep doing this.
Yes.
And until I hear otherwise from that still small voice, that's what I've been doing for 24 years, which for someone with a short attention span, that's a lot of years.
That is a lot of years. And you've helped so many families through that time, so many people to be able to bring the gospel to light, not only in classroom, but in their homes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I'm so happy that you've made it through COVID. There's so many people that their businesses did not make it through COVID. So we're grateful that you are still in business. And you can find Deborah Woods at latterdayvillage.com to be able to see what she has to offer on her things for your family. Your family will be able to benefit from that, to have these cute things that children can help teach with, that families can grow together and bond together and have that connection. The connection that's being lost nowadays, the connection that's dwindling in families, because we're zoning out with each other. We're zoning out and going our different ways and keeping so active. So this will help you.
Yep.
This will help families, right?
Yes.
Be able to stay together. So, Debbie, do you have one last thing that you would like to say before we close this off?
Well, the first thing that came to mind was if you love the gospel and your children know you love the gospel and they know that you love them, it'll be a no-brainer. They will absorb it, they will believe it, and it will stay with them. It stayed with me. There was a little lady who loved me unconditionally, and I knew she loved Jesus, and I know she was the anchor of my faith. And to this day, and I'm past 60, and it's amazing.
60 young.
60 young.
60 young.
I do have. I just got my senior lifetime pass from national parks. I'm at least 62. And anyway, so yeah, love is the key.
Yes.
Loving the gospel and loving your family, and it all comes together.
That's beautiful. Love is the ultimate emotion that you can show your children and put some time into them.
So thank you again, Deborah Woods, for being with us in today's podcast. This is the Zion in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Leland Coford.
And Bonnie Coford with UpStep Development.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
This podcast has been brought to you by Temple in Mind and UpStep Development. Thanks for listening.